Hello all, my name is Dr. V. Seduraman Shivakumar, Senior Scientist at the Central Tuber Crops Research Institute at Trivandrum. I am here to deal with a module called Criteria for Choosing Audiovisual Aids. Let me begin with a question like, are you a teacher or an extension professional or a student? Have you ever created or utilized the audiovisual aids like models, mock-ups, video films, multimedia modules and many more? If you say yes, then this module is meant for you. Use the audiovisual aids will end up with a basic question. How are these aids are selected? Randomly or following a systematic approach? And if I wish to create an interesting and motivating audiovisual experience, what are the criteria for choosing a winning combination of audiovisual aids? Let's begin to explore the world of audiovisual aids in search of these answers for these questions. This module on criteria for choosing the audiovisual aids provides an overview about the importance of choosing suitable audiovisual aids and explains three major approaches followed in selecting them in a systematic way. At the end of the presentation, we expect you to be an expert in choosing a right combination of the audiovisual aids which matches the learner's abilities and also meet the demands of the learning situation. We already know that audiovisual aids are primarily used to increase the effectiveness of the learning process in a teaching situation. However, choosing an audiovisual aid for a specific learning task is a difficult process which requires a series of decisions on the part of a teacher and a trainer. To begin with, let's recall the fact that audiovisual aid consists both of a machine and a media. For example, photo and video camera, computer hardware and software, as well as the material developed using them. For example, like photographs, multimedia and expert system. In another way, the audiovisual aids can be seen either as a media or method. Media means it's a physical or virtual form of an aid. Like you'll say poster presents a physical form of an audiovisual aids, while the PowerPoint presentation indicates a visual form. The method, the second one is the method by which the media is delivered, that is either for the individual use or presentation before a group. The audiovisual aids help to engage our senses to impart concrete learning through motivating and engaging learner in the process. Precisely, audiovisual aids increase the learning effectiveness through number one, selecting the relevant information that are appropriate to the learner objectives and the learner's capabilities. In simple terms, it is a breaking down of the relevant information into simple and comprehensible forms. Number two, organizing the information into a structure or a teaching format. It's like developing a sequence of the learning process by integrating the appropriate audiovisual aids. The third, engaging the maximum learner senses in the learning process to make the learning interesting and entertaining. Fourth, catalyzing the learner's participation in the learning process through continuous feedback. 5, aid the learners in comprehending the new information in a right way to integrate it with the existing knowledge. And finally, reinforce the learning to enhance its permanency. Let us look into the importance of choosing the suitable audiovisual aids. Why do we choose suitable audiovisual aids? The audiovisual aids are relatively expensive, especially in computer-based multimedia technologies, which demand quality expertise on the part of the teachers for effective use. In the recent days, the unit cost of learning in the professional disciplines like medicine, engineering, agriculture, as well as in the continuous education programs is increasing at a faster rate. In this context, integration of the new learning with the work or study environment is necessary to justify the huge investment incurred in the developing these instructional systems, including the audiovisual aids. Thus, it is essential to customize the audiovisual learning process based on the learning objectives, teaching situation, learners' capabilities to enhance the learning effectiveness. Though audiovisual aids can enhance the learning effectiveness, they are not a replacement for the teacher. In any learning situation, a teacher skillfully select the audiovisual aids based on certain criteria to achieve his or her teaching objective. Please remember, selecting audiovisual aids which is inappropriate to the learning situation and to the capabilities of the learner will lead to distortion of the learning process. For example, if the virtual reality based multimedia training system can be used for the learners who have the expertise in using the computer, using the same system for training the illiterate and neoliterate and old people will leave the learner anxious and frustrated. So, let us look into various criteria for choosing the audiovisual aids. Though audiovisual aids are extensively used in the learning process, there is no systematic theory or model which underlines the criteria required to select the most appropriate aid for learning. Kemp in 1994 proposed 3 different approaches to select the audiovisual aids or media. Number 1, selecting from readily available materials. Number 2, choosing the audiovisual aids which are familiar to the teacher. Number 3, selecting the audiovisual aids in a more objective way following the guidelines from cognitive psychology and related theories. The first 2 approaches represent a pragmatic way of selecting the audiovisual aids, while the latter signifies a objective way. Let us discuss these approaches in detail to improve our selection of the audiovisual aids to enhance the learning effectiveness. First, selecting from readily available materials. India has the largest extension system in the world, comprising of 0.1 million extension professionals. The extension system comprising of several central and state agricultural departments, animal husbandry, fisheries, water conservation departments and related departments like women and child welfare, rural development, frontline extension system of ICR and agricultural universities, NGOs and the Department of Advertising and Visual Publicity. These agencies altogether develop several kinds of audiovisual based materials for use to its stakeholders. These agencies produce a variety of materials like video CDs, multimedia CDs, print materials, radio recording, etc. in multilingual form and also in multiple copies. Besides, the teachers of the academic institutions also prepare and use the audiovisual aids for their classroom use. The good quality material with relevant content from these resources may be selected carefully and used in a learning situation at a cheaper or no cost. Using the readily available materials has several advantages. These materials are relatively cheap, available at free of cost, and again, since these materials are already prepared, the teacher need not spend time in designing and customizing these learning materials. However, this approach has few disadvantages too. Since these aids and materials are already prepared, the teacher cannot guarantee their relevance and the ability to impart concrete learning in the learning process. The teacher has very limited options to choose the best audiovisual aids from the available materials, which is matching the learning objectives. In this context, few guidelines may be followed in choosing a good quality materials from the locally available things. Number 1, the content of the material should be up to date and reflect the current situation in the phenomena. For example, a leaflet or folder describing the package of practices of rice should provide information on current practices used in cultivating the rice rather than the practices followed 10 years or 15 years ago. Number 2, the quality of the material should be clear enough to be seen and understood by the audience. Using a very old poster or chart with fading colors is likely to affect the learning process. Number 3, the audiovisual material should be relevant to the learner's situation. For example, if the farmer beneficiaries are cultivating crops in irrigated lowland, using the materials prepared for rain-wet cultivation is totally irrelevant. Then the other point is the audiovisual material should be familiar and easily understood by the learners. For example, the interactive video system is an effective aid for impacting the skill learning, but its operation is complex and rural people may face difficulties in operating the equipment if it is used for training the rural people. By seeing this, let us go to the another method of choosing audiovisual aids, which is primarily based on the teacher's familiarity with the materials. In general, The teachers of any educational institution or extension agency who are involved in academic teaching, field extension and continuous education programs are formally trained in using the audiovisual aids. During their college education, they are equipped with the fundamental knowledge and essential skills in using the audiovisual aids. The continuous education programs also help them to update their knowledge and upgrade their skills in using the new audiovisual methods and aids. The teachers can create their own audiovisual materials at a reasonable cost using the funds from their organization. Few aids can also be purchased for use at the school or extension agency using their own funds. Though this method has several complexities, but it has a lot of advantages over using the readily available materials. Number one, wide variety of audiovisual aids can be chosen or prepared from the options available to the teachers to address the diverse learners' need. For example, a teacher can develop a PowerPoint presentation on consequences of the child labor on the society and explain it by using the audiovisual aids or materials like the existing newspaper clippings, the existing posters or charts prepared by the various agencies to reinforce or elaborate that learning process. The multimedia integration can remove the computer literacy barriers of the low literate audience, as the posters and charts help them to understand these issues in clear way. Number two, these materials, the teacher-familiar, teacher-made materials are very inexpensive, where the teachers either prepare the audiovisual materials by themselves or buy from the market at a cheaper cost. Third, it demands less effort from the teachers, like the teachers' familiarity with audiovisual materials help them to design easily and use them skillfully in the learning process. For example, a teacher who is expert in preparing the PowerPoint presentation can easily grasp the operation of the LCD projector and can skillfully deliver the presentation to the audience. Fourth, teachers' familiarity with the audiovisual aids will help them to control over the pace of the learning process and check the progress of the learning with the learners. So, let us go to the third method, which is a bit cumbersome, costly, but it is very effective in learning situation. This is selecting audiovisual aids from a more objective way using the theories from cognitive psychology and related theories. Selecting the audiovisual aids in an objective way relies heavily on matching the audiovisual aids with the learner's tasks or demands, learner's capabilities, learning context, media attributes and other organizational factors. So, let us look into how the audiovisual aids are selected based on the learning task. Learning tasks are the activities or techniques the learners are urged to accomplish something or to solve a problem during the learning process. The learning task, they break the learning objectives into executable activities which together achieve the learning outcomes. Reisner and Gagg suggested few guidelines for choosing the audiovisual aids by matching them with the Gagg's 5 categories of the learning task, namely verbal information, intellectual skills, psychomotor skills, cognitive strategies and attitudes. While performing these tasks, the trainee learned to perform something, means that in the intellectual, psychomotor and cognitive strategy objectives, the trainee learns to do something. And in other cases like verbal information or attitudinal objectives, the trainee is internalizing a new learning and start believing something. These are all the 2 major categories out of the Gagg's learning objectives. The learn to do something objectives are targeted at developing the intellectual and motor skills, which require the audiovisual aids, which encourage feedback like computer-based multimedia, simulations, programmed instruction modules and the interactive video. The other audiovisuals like the motion pictures, slide or tape presentations, television, film strips and printed materials, mock-ups and audio recordings are suitable for developing the attitudes and the verbal information. The problem-based instructional design theory and model provides another approach for matching the learning needs or learning task of the learners to select the appropriate audiovisual aids. The guidelines for selecting the audiovisual aids are suggested based on the nature of the problem, like categorization, interpretation, and design. There are three types of problems which deal with three different ways of dealing it, and three types of materials are required for each problem. The number one, categorization, deals with the learner understanding a features or relationship of a particular object or thing, and he can define it, and he can distinguish the object or organism from others. For example, the types of plants like angiosperms, gymnosperm. The trainee can classify the plants into angiosperms and gymnosperm based on the characteristics. So, the media like photographs, slides, drawings, and models can be used for the categorization problem. The second type of problem which we are dealing with is an interpretation problem. Interpretation problems deals with observing the changes and movements of a phenomena or an organism, and measuring them to understand and interpret about a particular aspect. For example, like if you are watching movement of a wildlife to understand their hunting behavior, you can use the motion picture cameras, time lapse photography, and sometimes the video and the simulations to understand the movement of the wild animals in the forest and their hunting behavior. The third category of the problem is learning design. Like if someone wants to develop the prototype of something like a sketch of a machine, or he want to practice the use of something like I want to practice that paddy harvester, like I bought a paddy harvester, then I want to learn how to use it, so I am going to practice this. The design problem deals with both it developing something or practicing something. The three-dimensional working models like interactive video, simulations, and virtual reality based training can be used for effectively imparting the design learning. The other way of choosing the audiovisual aids is matching them with the learner's characteristics. So, another way, in this method, the audiovisual aids are chosen by matching the media with the individual differences among the trainees, which is a widely and popular and widely used approach in the field of education. It assumes that like individual differences like age, education, reading ability, learner familiarity with the topic, learning style of the learners, and his or her low personal and prior knowledge on the topic of the learning, like they can influence their learning effectiveness in the learning process. There are few guidelines are suggested to select the audiovisual aids based on the learner characteristics. Number one, the old age people are slow learners owing to their low cognitive ability to understand the complex concepts. Using the visual aids like photographs, slides, posters, pictorial graphs, and video supplemented with audio aids like audio recordings and oral lectures can improve the understanding of the old people about a complex concept. Number two, children and the adults with a low level of education have very poor reading ability, which affect their ability to comprehend the complex structures, especially the complex text structures. The learner with a low prior knowledge of a topic also face difficulties in learning through the traditional lectures and text materials. For example, the printed materials and textual presentations require high level of reading ability and cognitive processing for the learners to interpret them. So, the teachers can use the simple visual aids like photographs and video and supplementing it with the elaborate explanation, oral explanation through verbal mode for teaching the children and low literate adult to make them understand the complex concepts. Third, the learners with below average IQ tend to use the more visual and auditory senses while interpreting the information. So, when we deal with the low IQ people, using the audiovisual aids like working models, motion pictures will provide them a realistic experience, thereby enhance their learning. Fourth, the learners often exhibit preferences for learning through very specific senses like visual senses, auditory methods, and kinesthetic, means that moving our head, and tactile by touching. If the information is presented through the senses matching their preferences, the trainees are likely to be more engaged in the learning process and their learning will be more concrete and permanent. So, various learning style inventories like a Kolb's learning style inventory, NASSP learning style profile and VARK questionnaire are very popular methods for assessing the learning style of the trainees before selecting the appropriate audiovisual media. The other way of selecting the audiovisual media is based on the instructional event. We can also choose the audiovisual aids by matching them with the instructional events. The instructional events are the mental events that occur when the adults are presented with various stimuli during the learning process. GAG developed a 9-step process of the instructional events which correlate to and address the conditions of the learning. These instructional events and media are suitable for each event we will be discussing now. The first instructional event is gaining attention. So, using a very attractive picture or animation in a PowerPoint presentation or a very attractive and colorful poster outside can capture the attention of the learners. The second instructional event is informing the objectives to the learner. That means that audiovisual aids should be able to inform the objectives to the learners, like presenting a handout describing the objectives before commencement of any training session, or creating a slide presenting the objective before any PowerPoint presentation is one of the ways of matching the instructional event. The third one is it enables the learner to recall the prerequisite, because for any kind of topic there is a prerequisite, because the learning happens by matching the new knowledge with the existing knowledge. Showing an object, model or a picture to facilitate a learner to recall the aspects which he learned in the previous session or in the previous class is one of the ways of matching with the instructional events. The fourth one is presenting a new topic. So, when we are presenting or when we are introducing a new topic to the learners, and we have to help them to understand in a very easy and understandable way. Video films, interactive video, PowerPoint presentations which are integrated with audio and video are suitable audiovisual aids for introducing a new topic to the learners. The 5. Support the learning process through examples and elaboration. The audiovisual aids can help to stimulate the learning process by presenting the interesting and motivating experiences to the learners. For example, computer flash games are easy ways to teach complex concepts to the children. These games present the problems, elicit learners' interaction and provide elaborate feedback on the learner's performance. The 6th, eliciting the learner's response. The audiovisual aids present the information to the learner in an interesting way and also pose questions at the end of each module and involve them very actively in the learning process. For example, an educational video program present the information to the learner and seek their response in the form of their reactions on the program or answers to the test questions. 7th one, assessing the performance of the learner. The audiovisual aids should be able to assess the performance of the learner either in real time or offline, like the virtual reality based flight test simulators which are used in the pilot training. They provide the real life experience of driving an aeroplane and also provide frequent feedback to improve the learner's performance at every level. 8th, providing a corrective feedback. Audiovisual aids has to help the learner to rectify their mistakes in the process of learning. The multimedia based training modules provide the instant feedback to the learner's performance of a particular task. For example, athletic training in a human performance laboratory will give frequent inputs to the athletes to improve their actions, which enables them to make a real-time correction of their mistakes. 9th, the audiovisual aids should enhance the retention and transfer. Visual aids are proven to be very effective media to enhance the retention of the learning. The visuals supplemented with audio or video films like motion pictures can help the learner to retain their learning and transfer them to their workplace or the study in very effectively with reasonable accuracy. Another way of selecting audiovisual aids is based on the specific media attributes. The media attributes refer to the functional feature of each media, which is unique to the particular media, which enable a media to transmit a particular type of information, either audio or video or both, or the process of eliciting a particular trainee responses. A teacher should possess the expertise to match the media attributes with his requirements. Traditional media attributes related to their form like audio, visual or audio visuals, and as well as with the delivery systems. The delivery systems associated with the audiovisual media are transmission, storage, recording, processing and retrieval of the information. The transmission attributes relate to how the media has the capability for transmitting different type of information like visuals, audio or textual information. The teacher can skillfully combine them to make the learning process more interesting and effective. Storage attributes refers to the capability of audiovisual aids to store different types and amount of information. These attributes provide convenience to the teacher who can store a lecture on a video form or send it to the other schools for wider use, or he can also upload a video in the web portal and enable the learner to access at his own convenient time. Recent development in storage disk technology has increased the volume of data stored in CDs or DVDs or flash drives. Online storage facility like Google Drive also provide unlimited space for storing the personal files at free of cost. Then the other point is recording attributes indicate the medium's ability to record different type of training inputs. The multimedia training systems can record a variety of training inputs like answering to the questions, reaction of the trainees, sequence of learning and preference for information, which helps to customize the learning process. The other attributes like processing attributes, they are capabilities for analyzing different type of training inputs during the learning process and manipulating the stored resources. The adaptive instructional systems can analyze the various levels and forms of the training inputs and provide very specific feedback for improving the capacity of the trainees. The last one is like a retrieval attributes refer to the media's capacity to access the stored information. Like a computer can store large amount of information on the hard disk or in the online storage portal and retrieve it at any time at a faster rate. New generation media attributes like interactivity, linearity, learner control provide wider options for the teachers to utilize their capabilities effectively in the learning process. The interactivity is associated mostly with computers which can establish instant two-way or multi-way communication among a group of learners. The email and chat systems can help to establish contact with the individual and several users simultaneously either in real time or in offline. In these systems, the trainer has an option to respond to feedback individually or through a group to elicit desired interaction on a particular topic. The research indicates that providing immediate feedback increases the speed with which the learning occurs. The other point is like a linearity of the presentation, which is associated with mostly in the print and other traditional audiovisual media, while the non-linearity is very specific to the computer-based multimedia. Depending upon the requirement of the topic, the linear or non-linear presentation may be employed. For example, the method of producing vermicompost can be depicted in a linear fashion through flannel graphs or flashcards. Mastering the operation of a food extruder is a non-linear process which demands the multimedia modules for effective learning. The other point is like learners' control over the audiovisual media, which enables them to customize the learning process based on their abilities and convenience. The multimedia training modules provide the flexibility for the learners to learn at their own pace at a convenient time without traveling to the places for acquiring the expertise. The state-of-art hybrid media like adaptive learning system dynamically adjusts the type of instruction based on the learner's abilities and preferences and help them to personalize the instruction for the faster learning. These new capabilities of media also help the teachers or trainers to reach the learners across the geographical boundaries and barriers to deliver the instruction at convenience at a cheaper cost. We are now at the end of this presentation. I hope that you learned about the importance of selecting suitable audiovisual aids for maximizing the learning effectiveness. Also, the ways of selecting audiovisual aids from readily available materials, the methods of selecting audiovisual aids based on teachers' familiarity, and a more systematic cognitive behavioral approach for choosing the audiovisual aids. I guess that you may be familiar with a few of them, but I am sure that you will be carrying more guidelines when you leave this place. Let's hope that these guidelines will help you to design truly entertaining and effective audiovisual experience for the years to come. Thank you.